Good morning and welcome to Good Shepherd Lutheran Church Sunday School Online. Today's lesson is going to be about Jonah. It's called Jonah and the Big Fish. Have you ever heard this story before? It's a fun one. It's kind of funny too. Well, Jonah and the Big Fish can be found in your Spark Story Bibles. Yep. And it can be found on page 190. So I'm going to open up to that. We're going to read it out of here today. But you can also find the same story in your Spark Bible, your regular Bible. Sorry, I bumped the table there. And it's in here on page 1008 to 1010. Okay? So you can read it either place. We're going to read it out of the Spark Story Bible because it's a little shorter today. So, Jonah and the Big Fish. There you go. So you can open your Bibles and read along with me, or you can listen as I read. And I'm going to hold up and show the pictures every so often. Okay? One day, when Jonah was just minding his own business. Have you ever had those days when you're just minding your own business? Yeah. Well, one day, when Jonah was just minding his own business, God spoke to him. God said, Jonah, I want you to go to Nineveh and tell the people that I know they aren't living the way I want them to. I want them to change their ways. Yeah. Jonah may have started with the right idea, but once he started walking, Jonah began thinking about what a long walk it was to Nineveh. Jonah said, I don't really want to go to Nineveh. I'll go the other way. God will never know. So Jonah walked and walked away from Nineveh. When Jonah got to the sea, he paid to get onto a boat to take him even farther away. Jonah yawned. All that walking made me tired. I'm going to take a nap. There you go. Jonah walking the other direction from Nineveh and heading towards the boat. Jonah curled up on a pile of rope and fell asleep. But God saw Jonah. Whoosh! God sent a strong wind that tossed the ship to and fro. The sailors were so afraid that they started throwing things overboard to make the boat lighter and save themselves. The sailors worried. What's going on? They woke Jonah up. God is mad at me for not listening, Jonah said. So throw me overboard. And they did. They threw him overboard, and suddenly the sea was calm again. Look out, Jonah! Here comes a big fish! Gulp, gulp, gulp. The fish swallowed Jonah, and Jonah sat inside that dark, smelly fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah prayed, Help me, God. I'm sorry. Finally, the fish spit Jonah out on the beach. Trudge, trudge, trudge. Jonah went to Nineveh. He told the people what God had said, and they believed him, and they changed the way they had been living. God was happy that the people of Nineveh were now living as God wanted. There's Jonah inside the big fish. What do you think? Is that a funny story? Pretend with me a minute that you're on the boat and the waves are rocking us all back and forth and the winds are blowing. How do you feel? A little seasick? You know how Jonah felt, right? How do you think he felt, if that's the way he felt in the boat? How do you think he felt in the belly of a fish? Was it calm? Or did the fish go up and down a lot? Do you think he would have heard the stomach of the fish making noises? I think he was probably pretty scared. Yeah, I would have been. But he prayed to God, and God said, okay. And he was spit out on the beach, and then he walked to Nineveh, where he should have gone in the first place. And he told the people of Nineveh what God had said, and they listened. Yeah. So that's our story of Jonah and the big fish. It's a fun story, right? Sometimes blowing winds take us in directions we don't want to go. They might be the blowing winds of our own fear or our own uncertainty. And God helps us get back right on track. And he can make even mistakes that we make look beautiful in the end. Even scary things like ending up in a storm, or for Jonah in the belly of a big fish. God makes turn out okay and helps put it right in the end, and it becomes beautiful. So we are going to talk a little bit more about this story of Jonah and the big fish. And I have a craft project for us to do today, as well as another Bible verse that we can learn in American Sign Language. And this Bible verse is from the book of Jonah, and it says, "Salvation comes from the Lord." Can you say that with me? Salvation comes from the Lord. In other words, it is God who helps us even in our most difficult times. God helped the people of Nineveh. God helped Jonah, right? And God even helped those sailors on that boat in the middle of a storm. Salvation comes from the Lord. So let's learn that in American Sign Language too. Salvation is like this. So you put your fists together across one another and then release. So like you're handcuffed and breaking free of those handcuffs. So salvation. And then comes is point your fingers up like this. So comes, just bring down from the Lord, okay, because it comes from the direction that of the person who's talking to you. So if I'm saying something comes from you, I would do this way. If I'm doing something comes from outside of me, I might go from here, but from the Lord, we're going to come down. So comes from the Lord. And then the Lord is you make an L. So this is an L in sign language. You start up at your left shoulder and go down to your right hip. So from the Lord. All right. So with me, salvation comes from the Lord. All right. One more time. Salvation comes from the Lord. Yeah, that's our Bible verse for today. Now, let's do a craft to help us remember that even when things start out looking a mess, and even when things don't go the way we plan, they can still end up beautiful in the end. All right, so for this craft, you're going to need some paint. 2 colors is fine, but you can use 3 or 4 if you want. Don't know that you would want to use much more than that. I picked 2 colors that are just cool colors that I like, green and purple. You can use whatever colors you want, whatever colors you have. Washable paint is best, just in case you make a mess. And then you want to put some paper down. I've got some big sheets of paper. You can use newspaper on your working surface so that you don't get anything too messy. And then you're going to need some blank paper. I have just some nice heavy white kind of construction paper here. So we're going to use that. You need a couple cups to put the paint in and something to stir that paint with. I am using popsicle sticks, but you could use a spoon. You could use a chopstick, whatever you've got handy. You're also going to need a little bit of water. For this, the paint needs to be a little thinner. So you might have to have your parents help you with this. But the paint needs to be about the same consistency as milk, okay? So not so thin that you can see through it, but thin enough that you can pour it and it moves pretty easily. So about the consistency of milk. So, and then the last thing you're going to need for today is a straw, a drinking straw. I'm using a disposable one, but you could use a metal one, a reusable one, whatever you have handy, a straw. Okay, so you start by taking your paint colors and putting just a little bit, you don't need very much, just a little bit of paint in the bottom of a cup, okay? Then you're going to add just enough water to make it like that consistency of milk to make it thinner, and stir it up to make sure that you've got it to that right consistency, okay? And if you need to pause the video for a minute to get your paints where they need to go ahead and do it. Of course, if you get it too thin, you can just add a little bit more paint to thicken it up, but there's really not too thin that you can do with this. Just want it so you can pour it pretty easily. Okay, so I did the same thing with my purple paint. I don't know, this purple or lavender? What do you think? It's kind of a light purple. Lilac, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, it's a pretty color. All right, so I'm going to make the screen go down so you can see what I'm doing on the paper now. All right. Okay, so now you should be able to see my paper and my paints. All right. And we're going to take some of our paint, and you can either drip it on your paper, or you can just pour it. Or you can just pour it. And just pour a swirl. And then take your other color and do the same thing. All right. And you're just going to pour a swirl, and you can start at the bottom of your paper, the part next to you. All right. It's kind of pretty, isn't it? How's yours looking? Well, we're going to take our straws now, and we are going to blow across our paint. And we're going to make the paint go in all sorts of different directions on our sheet of paper. We're going to keep it on the paper, but we want to see what happens, right? So you're just going to blow. You keep blowing, and it's going to go out in different directions. Sometimes it'll make little legs, like little tendrils that'll go out. Depends on how thin or thick your paint ended up being. It's really hard to plan what it's going to look like when you're just blowing the paint around your paper. Sometimes it starts looking a little messy. You'll notice that your paint starts looking a little bit marbled, right? Like it's mixing together a bit. You can see how long a tendril you can get. Just play around with it. There's really no wrong way that this can go. And even though it might look like it's going to end up being a mess, in the end, it will look really cool. That's kind of the thing, right? That's what we're talking about with Jonah. Even though the whole story started looking like a mess, with Jonah going the wrong direction and getting on a boat when he should have been walking to Nineveh, and a storm and a big fish and all of those things, in the end, it ended up being beautiful, right? The people listened to Jonah, and they listened to God, and they changed, and everything ended up good in the end. Sometimes we can't plan things out as much as we'd like. Sometimes things don't go the way we want them to. That doesn't mean that what starts out looking like a mess ends up looking like a mess. So I did one of these earlier, and I had a little fun with it. I used the same colors, and I ended up with this. Isn't it pretty? Once it's dried, and you'll want to make sure it dries long, and you could put this in different directions, you know. If it goes down like this, it almost kind of looks like, I don't know, like a cloudy sky during the summer when you've got those big thunderheads, right? Then you know there's rain coming. Yeah, you put it like this, and maybe it looks like a bunch of trees across a field. What do you think? It's just cool. So have some fun blowing your paint around your paper. Try some different color combinations or different consistencies of your paint, thinner or thicker, and see what beautiful things come out of the mess you start with. So let's finish again today with our Bible verse in American Sign Language. And again, this is from the book of Jonah, and it's salvation comes from the Lord. Salvation comes from the Lord. always remember that our help comes from God. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next week. God bless.